guys, it's Jessii Vee, and this is kind of a sad moment because this is going to be the very last video I'm making in October. The Halloween videos have been so much fun. This backdrop has been so much fun, but honestly, I am really excited for Christmas. So literally 1 year ago, I did a video about the Salem witch trials, and ever since that video, you guys have been begging me to do a part 2. So I feel like now is the perfect time to do so. So last time I concentrated more on what made someone a witch, if you will. And today I'm more focusing on random general facts about witch trials. Doesn't even have to really be about the Salem witch trials. So we're just gonna jump right into today's video. First, let's talk about the devil's mark. So the devil's mark, or the witch's mark, it was said to be a permanent mark inflicted by the devil onto a witch to show her obedience to him. It was believed that he literally scratched his claws against the witch's skin or used a hot iron to poke them. So when they were trying to figure out if someone was a witch, they would literally strip these people down and search every inch of their skin for a mark that was unusual. Some people believe that the witch's mark could be found in unusual places, like on someone's eyelid, in someone's armpit, on their scalp, under their hair, a place that no one usually sees. So when they would look over these people's bodies, they would be like, close your eyes, move your hair around, let me see your armpit. It was crazy. Then we have something called prickers. Pricking was the act of using a small needle or knife to prick a mark that was thought to be the devil's mark. So if they found something unusual, which was usually like a birthmark or something, they would take these tiny needles. They would poke the mark, and if that person wouldn't bleed, they would assume they were a witch. And the crazy thing was, people were paid back then whenever they would turn in a supposed witch. So many fake prickers were produced. So these men would use a needle or a knife that would actually retract whenever it touched someone's skin, so it never poked them at all. And so obviously they wouldn't bleed. It kind of reminds me of like those fake swords at a costume store where like if you go to like hit someone with it, it goes in so it doesn't actually hurt. They created stuff like that to make money off of these poor women or men who were thought to be evil. Then we have witch cakes. Witch cake was believed to have the power to reveal whether a person's illness or possession was actually caused by witchcraft. So the cake was made with the urine from the accused person, creating an extremely unappetizing cake that was then fed to a dog. If the dog displayed the same symptoms as the possessed person or the witch, this was considered enough evidence that the person was a witch. So for example, if someone was having convulsions, which were seizures, they actually thought the person was being possessed by a witch or by something evil, and so they would take that sick person's urine, give it to a dog, and if the dog began convulsing, they knew that person was evil. But that never obviously happened. But it was believed that if that possession was transferred to the dog would be able to point to the person who was the witch and lead the people towards them. So like suddenly the dog gets super smart and he's like,
over there. It's that person right there.
Then we have something called the ducking stool. The device was made of a wooden or iron chair attached to a beam and was usually placed near a river or pond. It was repeatedly lowered into the water with the victim strapped to it. And this was typically done multiple times for long periods and often proved fatal through drowning or shock, which is absolutely awful. And people would just like gather around and watch this happen. And then probably the most famous test for witches was the swimming test, in which a suspected witch was stripped down to her undergarments, tied up, and thrown into the nearest body of water. And they thought that if this witch sunk, they were innocent, and if they floated, they were a witch. Now, most people think that all witches drowned during this cruel test, and while accidental deaths did occur, the suspects usually had this rope tied around them where they could be pulled from the water if they did sink. So some people would and some people wouldn't. This test came about because it was believed that water would reject witches' bodies. Then we have a device called the witch's bridle. This is sometimes also also known as Scold's bridle or Branks. And the witch's bridle was a torture device used to stop witches from reciting spells, and the device was usually made of iron and acted as a muzzle with a piece of metal permanently placed in the mouth. And it usually had spikes, and it would lie flat across your tongue, making talking excruciatingly painful and pretty much impossible. And this device was used as a method of humiliation, and it usually had this chain attached to it so the witches could be pulled through the town and people would look at them and laugh at them. I found this really strange story about King James I of England. King James I of England came to the throne in 1603, and he was terrified of witches and thought that they were going to kill him. While he was King of Scotland, he had traveled by boat to Denmark to marry Princess Anne, and after the wedding they sailed back to Scotland, but there was a storm so violent and so fierce that James believed that it had been sent by witches. James and Anne had to wait in Norway for a few weeks for this terrible storm to pass. That's how long it took. And when they finally arrived back in Scotland, James immediately started this investigation to find out who caused this storm, and in turn 70 people were accused of being witches. He thought that they caused the storm and he ended up killing them, which is awful, but that's just how things were back then, which is terrible to think about. Anyways though guys, those are the other facts that I was able to find about the history of witches and witch trials. I probably could pull out one more video from this sort of topic, so if you would like me to, give this video a thumbs up and let me know. But I hope you all have an amazing Halloween. I will see you in a couple days, and yeah, have an awesome rest of your day. Bye!